What do you think of when you think of garden gnomes? A decoration often found in the front yards of grandmothers and garden enthusiasts, stemming from German folklore around dwarves. They are depicted as shorter people, often wearing red pointy hats and carrying garden appliances.
So, what is it about garden gnomes that led to the success of the story we're about to tell? The story of gnomes.
For this, we flew to Brisbane, Australia, home to 2.8 million people, even more ibis, or more locally known, the bin chicken, and the Brisbane River, more brown than. It doesn't matter. It's here we find the two developers of Gnomes, a roguelike tower defense game with pixel art graphics and a budget of around $0.
With 18,000 games being released on Steam last year, and with most of those barely making it into triple figures in sales, how did this game sell over 10,000 copies in just 2 days? And who are the masterminds behind the success?
I started making Warcraft 3 custom maps. So, yeah, like I'll say it again, like that shit was where like it all started for like Dota and everything. Like that was mad. So that's kind of where I started. I was like 14 or something when I started that. Well, I was probably like even younger. I was doing that all through that time, and like, yeah, that really got me started on like programming. But I didn't do real programming until like uni, so not till I was like 17, 18, and yeah, and I just made like a few games like randomly, just like messing around, like yeah, it's like little like tower defenses and stuff like that, and then just like messing around, just like more programming, just like technical like stuff. Yeah, like shaders, like proc gen, like Minecraft engine shaders, like different ideas, and just like really explored for a while and developed my like technical like skill set.
Yeah, I guess for me it was I remember I met a guy who was making he was a bit of a cooker. He was cooking this like 4-wheel driving game that was fully 3D, and I asked him, "God, what games do you play?" He's like, "Oh, I don't play games." And anyway, the job I got was I got the job doing the sound and the music. And that was like my first start. And I kind of like observed this guy make this game, but like he was making a game for no one. And it kind of made me realize, like, hang on, like if you're actually going to make a game, like you've got to figure out who your audience is. So over the next couple of years, I like messed around in Unity a bit. I never really was technical enough to make something that was beyond like a platformer. And like, I personally don't really care for platformers either. I had a couple of guys that I've known for some time come up with the idea. Hey, it was actually during the plague, COVID, and they're like, "Oh, we got a bit of time, obviously. Let's make a game." And we cooked on some ideas for a little while, and eventually we figured out that, oh, look, this Vampire Survivors buzz is really firing. So we made a survivor-like called Sea of Survivors. It was kind of my inspiration to make a pirate game, because like, I really liked any kind of fantasy, but particularly pirate music is really fun to make, and like, you know, it really vibes with the style of music that I enjoy making. And yeah, I think if anything, it started out as a soundtrack, and we didn't really have an artist or anything. And I went, oh shit, well, an artist is going to cost us a lot of money, so I guess I'm just going to have a crack. And one night I just like stayed up all night and like drew some pirate ships in A-Sprite, which is a pixel art program. And eventually I kind of like started to get the hang of it pretty quickly. And yeah, we just ended up making this pirate game over the space of a couple of years.
It all began from a chance meeting, two developers with skills that complement one another. It almost sounds like the start of a bad gaming joke. An artist and a programmer walk into a bar, but for the story of Gnomes, that's not far from the truth.
So I can probably tell a more cinematic version of it. So I was at Big Dev in Brisbane, So that was at like Bloodhound Bar or something. And I've had kind of like had my fill of talking about technical things with people because it's like pretty boring to me. I like more interested in the creative tales and like, you know, themes and actual mechanics and such. And I was standing there, I was almost out of beer and I was about to go downstairs, and then this quirky looking dude wearing a pair of thongs with a tie-dye shirt wanders up and he just like makes eye contact with me, and I'm like, oh, hey bro. And he's like, oh, hey man. And we just like stood there and spoke to each other for like an hour. And like, we kind of just like, you know, wavelength connected straight away. Like we just sort of knew that we were like from the same cloth, you know? So yeah. And then we just sort of hung out with a few other people that night. And then when it all wrapped up, we like just went to the trainer. I was like, all right, well, hey, what's your Discord, bro? I'll catch you later. And off we went. Yeah. So that was the tale. That was sort of just sank some beer and talked about what games we were into. And yeah, it just sort of felt pretty natural from the start, I think. A lot of the time at those kinds of meetups, like there's a bit of, it's a little bit hard to crack people, I find.
Yeah.
There's like a very professional layer, whereas like we didn't have any of that. We're just like chill and casual. Don't really take anything too seriously. Except memes, maybe.
After meeting, it didn't take Tommy and Pat very long to start working together under the company name of Dystopian. Far from the garden gnomes and hordes of angry goblins, they started off with a very different game, with very different complications.
Yeah, we were making this other game called Spell Slinger, which was like a spell crafting wizardry game.
Yeah.
Like we both agreed very early on that medieval fantasy is kind of our jam.
Yeah.
Except we were cooking on too many mechanics in this one game that we realized pretty quickly it was going to take us 3 years to finish it.
Yeah. Well, I think we worked on Spellslinger for like an amount of time, like what, like 4 months or something, 6 months.
Yeah.
Something like that. And like, to be fair, like we were learning how to like, we were like sort of defining the workflow then. Yeah. And I was also like laying the groundwork for the engine, or like, you know, continuing to like build the engine as well. So eventually we were like, oh man, this is like getting pretty like hard. I think we'd done like an inventory system. And it's like, it was kind of like you had an inventory, and then all the like staffs had like a sub inventory, and then there were these like kind of like components. They're like wand components or whatever that would all like modify it as spell, and you could like put them in there and it would determine the spell. And so I'd basically been cooking that, and it had like taken months, and we had got that working, but it was also like pretty unwieldy. And to be fair, I'd probably like do it differently again now, and knowing what I know now, and like everything, blah blah blah. But yeah, we were just kind of like, oh man, this is like blowing up. And it was like, it had already reached the point where it was like, I didn't even really want to touch it anymore. It's like an inevitability when you're like working on code or whatever. But yeah, it was already at that point. So we were like, damn, we need to like strip it back.
With their first concept not hitting the mark that they wanted to, Tommy and Pat had to go back to the drawing board. Bills were mounting, beer's not free, so they had to come up with something quickly if they wanted to survive.
I was kind of like at the pointy end of my other game, Sea of Survivors, where I was like, okay, this game's not going to make any money soon, so I'm going to be broke soon. So we got to make something soon. And it was like, Patrick's like, oh, why don't we just like bang out a TD game over a weekend or something? And we came up with the idea of like, I think it was our birthday.
Yeah, it was
our birthday's like one day apart. I'm the 7th, he's the 8th. So he came up for our birthday and stayed over here, and he was a bit fizzled because he'd just been to a festival. But anyway, I put him outside with some coffee in the sun, and he just like modified the current game engine a bit. And before we knew it, we had like the chunks being placed, and we had like the pathing and stuff. Then we had the idea, oh, why don't we make it so the gimmick is that the towers can move? And I did it like an art mock-up. I was like, hey, check this out. And it was just like the pretty much as it is currently, like the gnomes, maybe a little bit less colorful.
You pretty much came up with like the thematic pitch, like on your own, and like it sold me on that like straight away pretty much. I was like, yeah, it's pretty mad, because it's kind of like a turn-based tactics thing almost.
Yeah.
Secretly it's that, but it's like tower defense.
We have had people actually say like it's got trad roguelike and dungeon crawler vibes to it because of the tile system and like how the map expands and stuff. But yeah, I guess that was probably the thing that got us started, was trying to link the theme with the mechanics. So having gnomes you can move, and Patrick really wanted to have a map that expands, and like that way we could use the proc gen, because proc gen's one of the things Patrick does really well, is just like making I suppose it's like creating the possibilities of what the proc gen can actually do.
Like I love my proc gen, you know, like I'm pretty proud of like some of the things. Like I remember when I first made Oasis, like the Oasis chunks that you get on like the desert, like you remember that? I just like banged that out in like probably like 5 minutes or something, and it was like, bro, like looks sick, and it's like, you know, it worked really well with your tiles.
Well, that's actually the funny thing, that most of the stuff that just worked was really quick. Like, and that's the cool thing about working with 16 by 16 grid, and then obviously a grid. There's like less to go wrong.
Yeah.
Like we can just bang out.
Grid's like huge W.
We come up with a relic idea, and he can code it in half an hour, and I can make the art in 15 minutes, and we've got a new item in the game. Like, but the hard thing is coming up with an idea that's unique, and then skinning it with something that feels right, because there's a lot of stuff, like there's so much stuff that you guys just have never seen because we just went in the bin because it was just shit, you know. So yeah, it's more about like choosing what we actually do put in the game rather than how quickly or how hard it is to make stuff.
With like quickly bashing like proc gen together, it's maybe something I'll talk more about later, but like it's kind of comes from like shaders, like shader programming. And like shader programming is something I would like emphasize as like, just like these people are like S tier, like technical people, and like, yeah, just kind of like the influence from that, but you can just apply it in like different contexts, and you can just like, make stuff like real quick.
Yeah, we originally started with the idea of doing one bit, which is 2 colors, but we were like, oh, we could add a lot. I could add a lot by not adding a lot of work. So just adding like our there's actually a guy called Adam C. Eunice, who's a YouTuber. I let him know that I used his palette that he created. He's a really interesting pixel art YouTuber. I think he's from Melbourne too. You should hit him up. He created this awesome palette called Apollo, and it's just got really tight, a really tight spectrum of colors. And for someone like me who's not a great artist, but enough of an artist to like just be able to bang something out, like it just took away all the complexity.
So I created the Apollo palette for the mobile version, the larger version of a game that I created in a game jam called Remember Apollo. The mobile title is called Arrowbound, and while the jam game just had 4 colors, 4 shades of green, the mobile game, I wanted to have a lot more variety in the palette, and I thought that I would make something sort of more general purpose that I could use in other projects and maybe share online for other people to use in their games too. So yeah, that was the origin of it. I was really just going for something that had a good spread of the palette, that was pretty general purpose, not really weighted in any one direction, not too saturated, sort of, an easy kind of pick up and play palette. This kind of ties back to what the point of a pixel art game is. At least historically, pixel art games come from a time when we had limitations in the hardware of what we could show on screen. And creatively, having constraints puts you in a position where you have to be more creative. Even if those are artificial constraints today, it still gives you the space to work within something that has clear boundaries. It forces things to be more consistent, and lets you sort of like not go too crazy with your colors, especially if you're not as confident. So, you know, a lot of people who are sort of more technically minded and not as creative might prefer working with a palette because it gives them clear guidance on colors that they know are going to work.
So it's the same as like Patrick's saying with all the bloat. If you've got like the whole color spectrum, it's just too much for my peanut brain, you know?
We've got like quantization in like multiple dimensions here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're protecting ourselves from nonsense just by keeping everything simple.
Yeah, I think Gnomes does a really good job of using the palette to establish a clear art style. It's kind of feeling like early DOS games, kind of like text-based adventure, ASCII art, or moving into sort of Atari 2600 or NES style, where the black is being used as kind of like a default color, establishing this void. And the art assets really pop off of that by really being more sparing and only being used to establish like things that have literal game mechanics value. So everything that we're seeing, especially like as you expand into the game, as the systems are being explored, we're seeing more of that color pushing into the void. I think for a game that's very systems heavy and has procedural elements, I think this style really signals to players that that's the case. It's really good for kind of letting your imagination fill in a lot of the blanks and focusing on what your choices are. You know, the more elaborate of an art style you have, the more you're kind of describing and prescribing to the player what the world is. But again, with a very limited art style, there's a lot of room for imagination and for you to invest yourself into that space.
One thing I always try to do is I try to like think about the atmosphere. So the music and the like ambience track kind of, I make them almost at the same time. Like, you know, little birds chirping. Oh, beautiful. You can hear birds chirping, hopefully. Birds chirping and like, you know, bees flying around in a meadow, or like the wind flying through the trees and stuff. I think about that. And then I try to like create like the layers of it. When I create the actual melodies themselves, I like to reuse them and like reuse them in a different context. Like in this song, it might be the same melody in a major key. Then in this song, it might be a minor key, but it's actually the same riff. And you know, maybe it's like pitch shifted a little bit. But I like to bring it all back around. Like I'm inspired by a lot of film music and a lot of other game music, obviously, but the primary thing that I really care about is that the mood suits the scene rather than it being like a technical masterpiece. I actually am not like the best live performer. I kind of like operate like 8 seconds at a time, like just a few bars, and just try to build it as I go. I also try to leverage things like Fmod to create adaptive soundtracks. So for Gnomes, I've kept it pretty simple, which is there's essentially 2 tracks playing in parallel. And when the when the enemy waves come, the second track comes in. It's like got percussion. It might have like some low end strings or, you know, whatever. But it basically means that a 1 or a 2 minute track suddenly has a bunch of variety, and it's in line with what's happening in the game. I do use a lot of freesounds.org for like things that I can't do myself. Like for example, if I need like an explosion, I can't really record an explosion, so I'll use free sounds or something. But usually like I'll just like here, I might have something here. Here we go. If I need to like record a sound, I'll be like, or like if I want to do like the UI sound effects, I'm just like, you know, they're like edited. I usually add like some pitch variants and stuff so that they're not the same thing over and over. My house keys are the coin sound. I wish I had it with me so I could show you, but yeah, like I do a lot of stuff in like, I use Reaper, which is, if you're thinking about getting into audio, get on a Reaper. It's awesome. I've got some really cool plugins. Like my favorite music plugin is actually one called Era Medieval Legends 2. I don't know if you can see it on the camera here, but I've got my Renaissance lute there, which is like the swamp theme and stuff. I have kind of stepped away from live instruments because they're just a lot of work, and like plugins are so good now and like so fast. So yeah, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors is one way to put it. But I use sometimes like an instrument to create a sound effect, like drums to create like impact and add things on top of the like whatever sound effect I've added to the game. I think the hardest part is just living like a frugal lifestyle. Like we've eaten a lot of ramen noodles.
Being broke.
We don't
Being
eat
homeless.
out. Yeah, like beers are like my primary luxury.
Coffee over here.
Oh yeah, coffee.
Coffee is probably my biggest expense.
Yeah, we spend a lot of money on coffee. That's one thing. I don't know. We never really wanted anything, to be honest. Like, it was just everything we wanted, we made ourselves. Like there was a few things that were like, that would have been nice to pay for. First of all, we are lying. It's not $0, but it's not $1,000 either. It's so the money we've spent. It costs you about $150 to put a game on Steam, and we originally did our own capsule art, but we paid a guy in Colombia, or a couple of guys in Colombia, who are called Red Potion. Highly recommended if you're making a game. Hit up Red Potion; they're awesome. And they made the art that's there now, and that cost us about $700 Aussie.
With the visuals of the game locked in and the code now working, we move the conversation to the backbone of the game, the engine. With a market that's flooded with options such as Unreal Engine, Unity, Godot, and RPG Maker, Pat took a rather unconventional approach to this project.
The conventional advice is always use an engine. It's like, never make your own game engine, always use an engine. I fucking hate game engines. Unity is a bloated piece of shit. I mean, like, sure, it comes with like a font rendering, and you don't have to spend like ages like implementing your own font rendering.
And maybe you kind of can do like mobile and console and such, but if we were using Unity, we wouldn't be done yet, is the TLDR on that. We're like, I've made another game with Unity and we're still making it. And it's not so much Unity's fault. It's that you need to understand Unity, and learning Unity for him was going to take longer than just letting him loose on what he knows.
Yeah.
And I don't actually get involved enough in that for it to benefit me. And rather than creating like, creating a game within Unity, we've instead just created this very, very light engine, and then there's some tools in there that make my job easy. Like for me to add an asset to the game, all I gotta do is drop it in a folder and push it up on GitHub, and then just like add a few, what's the word? I've written like 10 lines of code in my life. So we add
he doesn't mind it. So surprisingly enough, he has like an alright time using the engine.
And because it's so small, there's only like so many different.
It's like 4 megabytes. If you leave out the music, it's 4 megabytes.
Oh, dude, yeah.
You don't even need Discord Nitro to like send a zip of the game to someone.
The biggest part of the game is actually the Fmod folder, which is like 30 megabytes or something. The rest of the game's like 15 megabytes or less, or probably even less.
Yeah, it goes down to like 4 or whatever. But yeah, and like I have like a lot I could say about the engine stuff, but yeah, like how you said, like you have to, if you're using an engine, it's like either way you have to learn. It's like, here's like all the components. There's like all these components in a game. There's like a list of components that you like need proficiency in. It's like, skills or whatever. It's like you need proficiency in like this thing. And it's like, yeah, if you're using Unity, it's like you still need that. You still need to like maybe like research which like selection of like crappy plugins you're gonna like cobble together. Or for me, in my case, it's like researching how like each one is made, and then I just like make it and then like put it in my folder, and now I've got it. So either way, like when you choose to roll your own, it just means you have to like add all of these things to your toolbox like over time. And so like over time, I've just been like expanding the toolbox. And of course, we're very far way away from doing something with like 3D animation and shit like that. Like I don't want to like, I would learn like Unreal or whatever if I was going to do that, but we're not doing that obviously. And we're also not animate. We also like don't really have the resources to like produce assets of that quality anyway. So yeah, that
would be like a whole side quest for me, or we'd have to find another person. Like, so at the moment, the fact that we're 2 people is like the creative process is just us finding something that we can agree on. Even having a third person, it becomes like a diplomatic, there's some kind of politics in some way. Like when we have like a debate, I guess like what normally floats to the top is like, how much work is this? I don't want to do this because it's too much work. Okay, well, what's the ooga booga solution? I guess.
The balance is pretty cooked, honestly. I like, yeah, it's pretty broken. But we just I think we just let it be broken, like, because it's kind of fun. And like new players don't really like know how broken it is. It's an ongoing thing. Like I kind of do want to cap recycling bin one day, but it's also like kind of funny.
You can get on the Discord server and see the share your runs page, and like basically there's people that are playing the game until their computers don't work. So like there's that end of the spectrum, but they're like 0.5% of our players. Most people enjoy we really focus on making the first map and the early game experience digestible, and that was the part where we really cared about balancing. So I think what we did is we figured out with Forest, which is the first map, we really put a lot of effort into that, and we kind of actually follow like a similar structure with the other maps as well. One thing we do though is when we create a new map, we normally create a couple of guilds that accompany it, and those guilds are designed to be able to beat that map. Like we give them the starting tools to like give them a bit of a leg up. So if you want to beat the map, like whatever guild you unlock on that map, use that guild and you probably got the best chance. But in saying that, there's always like the real busted combinations as well. Like what's a guild that's pretty crazy? Probably like
Townsfolk's pretty OP.
Townsfolk's pretty OP. I'd say anything that gives you a lot of swamp ranges, Paul's ass. I guess Archers is all ass, but
Gardeners is pretty. I reckon Gardeners is just like auto win.
Yeah, true. It's actually kind of like the favorite though. It's, We did a
yeah, people don't really mind.
We did a survey. What's your favorite gnome? And I think Cactus won.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. And the last one on balance is like, yeah, it's like too hard for most people, and then it's like too easy for like the rest of people. So yeah, and we don't really have like the resources to really spend on balance like that much. Like we don't have like dedicated like balanced like play testers or anything in house that you would kind of need. So we just kind of like put it out there, and so like a bit of an emergent kind of thing. So
a lot of it is to do with the RNG as well. Like if you just roll the right item in the shop, like your run's magical, whereas otherwise the same guild might die on day 7, you know?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's like mostly mediated by people not really like using the shop to its fullest capability, because the shop was kind of made to be like pretty forgiving actually. I would say like because it's like you've got commons, you've got like a lot of auto win commons like Cactus and just things to just like solve all your problems, but the noobs still don't know, and they're still like, oh, it's so hard.
That's fine. That's when you have the most fun. It's like the first time you play RuneScape and you've got no equipment. That's actually the funnest part. It's when you've got everything and you're just grinding. That's when it sucks and you don't realize. You kind of like
nothing to work towards, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like trying to figure out the game and trying to figure out the meta is what actually makes a new game fun.
Yeah, it's like pretty hard balancing early game versus late game. Like that's what I think, like especially from this, like having the late game be still like presenting a balanced kind of like flow state challenge is like, that's like elite if you can pull that off.
Yeah, I personally just say don't worry about it and just let them cook, you know. Just let if they figure out something busted, and we'll just make the late game so exponentially difficult that it eventually knocks them on the head, you know. It
is very exponential.
Yeah,
turns into like exponential amount of time spent placing gnomes.
It's also the way we do the economy too, is because every day you get paid. It's just like it's impossible to balance them.
Yeah, your economy grows exponentially, so without like some kind of artificially like inflating the price of gnomes and stuff as you put them down, like you end up spending a lot of time placing gnomes, but we didn't really want to do that, so this was just like a consequence of how unhinged the late game gets.
The late game is actually capped by space more than currency, so
like in this game, like all the chunks in this game, as they're known, are like 5x5 like square of tile type, and then like has like an entity on it optionally, right? And so that's even a way more discretized space than like most other things that you would get as well. So like, yeah, a lot of the time, like a lot of this lot of this was like deliberately gave ourselves like just the most like smallest space to work with. The same thing with the game, like the internal resolution is 360p, it's like 640 by 360. And we run into all sorts of problems where it's like the text just like won't fit and stuff like that, or it's just like a mad puzzle, or like UI elements where like nudging, like trying to like shave off pixels here and there and stuff like that. But it also like kind of kept us honest.
Yeah.
In a way, or like it stopped us from like bloating it out and like too much. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the same thing happened with the like 5x5 chunks.
It stops us from cooking on nonsense that we don't need.
Yeah.
It's the limitations inspired a lot of creativity. And I think in future that we will probably carry that philosophy on, because if we were dealing with like a huge 3D world or something, we would still be cooking. We wouldn't even have a prototype at this
3D
point.
models, animations.
Yeah. Something you said once was, it feels like this game's designing itself. Because it was just like the choices were so obvious. Like we use the term ooga booga to describe like, well, what's the solution? It's like caveman style. Like what's the most like dumb, short, easy way to solve this problem? Yeah. And like there's been some stuff that's bit us in the ass in the end, but I think the fact that we actually finished the game in like 10 months, it's kind of like, you know, we can take it on the chin and just like deal with some of these problems now that the game's out. We're already getting paid for it. You know?
Sometimes you've got like two competing options to solve a problem, and one is going to take like 30 seconds to code and one's going to take like 30 days to code basically. And so yeah, sometimes you just gotta like look for those.
There's the odd occasion where you have to take the 30-day option.
Like oh, you know, like I guess like a recent example is like once we got it translated into German, it's like that shit is wide, bro. Like and it didn't fit. It was over by like 2x as long as the space that we had. And I was like, hey Tommy, can you like go through and do this? And he was just like, oh, why don't we just make the box wider? And I was like, yeah, fair enough actually. Let's just do that.
Yeah, because we were gonna have to like crunch the font smaller, or we were gonna have to like try and like figure out. We're basically gonna have to learn German.
Or adjust like line width based on what font it is, except that we don't ever switch based on what font it is. So it's like, no.
Yeah, you're getting into the weeds pretty much.
And we liked it better. Like wider anyway. We're just like, oh, it actually looks better anyway. So yeah, stuff like that. That's what we do.
If making a video game wasn't challenging enough, Tommy and Pat did this in their shed on a budget of $0. So how did they make this work? And what did their friends and family think?
The shed is like when we're together, Patrick comes and stays, and got a little room over there which he sleeps in. And I call it like the incubator, like in Silicon Valley. But we just hang out and, you know,
Erika Buckman.
slide the roller door up and get a bit of vitamin D and just hook in. I don't know. It just felt like.
I guess like bringing the tables in. That's probably about it. Oh, he brings running the Ethernet, bring the power. Yeah. But the shed's pretty much like left intact in its natural state, isn't it?
Yeah, for the most part. We just have to share it with like the gym, which doesn't really get used a lot. It's going to get used soon, I hope. But anyway, and lawnmowers and such. But yeah, pretty. The whole point was just not really being able to cook at 2 a.m. and not worry about the missus getting woken up. And
I have one friend that thought it was pretty nuts.
Was it Tommy?
No, it's my mate Dave. He's way more like conservative in his approach to life, and it's something we have like pretty philosophical discussions. So we like debate at length. But like when I recently told him about the numbers we did, he was just like flabbergasted. You know, he like couldn't believe it. Like I don't think he even like imagined, or he clearly didn't imagine. He had my interest at heart when he was like, I'm warning you. Like I don't think you should have quit your job, like sort of thing. But yeah, no, he was pretty surprised.
Well, I was there from early on. I knew it was going that route because it was actually in that share house where we were like having drinks and spitballing the idea, because we'd always sort of prototype games and stuff in our spare time. That was the thing we had in common. And yeah, we were floating the idea of like, why don't we just take a year off and just like try and make a game or something, like, you know, floating the idea of working together or whatnot. And like in my mind, it's like, oh, we were just playing around with that idea, like maybe something in the future, you know. I was hesitant. I'm like, you can't just leave your career, right? Like, but then it was like 2 weeks later at work, he just tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "That's it, I'm done." He's like, I can't remember what he said. He just said like 4 words or something to me, just like as if it was nothing. I'm like, dude, really? And that was it. So he was off to Melbourne and Sydney and traveling around, sleeping on couches and whatnot. He's been back sleeping on my couch every now and then. Can't remember when he left, like 3 years ago maybe. He left work and I think he had a couple odd jobs, whatnot. But you asked what my thoughts were on that, and I was pretty like all in favor of it, because I'm definitely thinking like you don't want to go your whole life just not trying that at least once. And he was younger than me then, so I was like, what better time to do that, if you can. And it sort of inspired me to do similar. Like I've dropped back. I'm doing like a 3-day a week instead of the full time, so I can like work on my own games in my spare time. So he kind of gave me like the motivation, like, oh, maybe I can do that too. Maybe it's not that crazy. So I'm glad he did it.
My friends have been pretty supportive because they saw that I made another game that did pretty well, and they played this and went, oh shit, this is better. Like, so they could tell straight away that Gnomes was something a bit different, something a bit unique. But my folks didn't get it. They got my last game, which was a survivor like, because it was just really easy when I showed it to them. Like, oh yeah, this is fun. And they even played it a bit. But when I showed them Gnomes, it was just like too complicated. But for me and for Ali, my partner, we knew that I had to take a bit of a risk, because there's always the option, I can go and work in a cubicle, or sell something, or be a graphic designer or something like that. I mean, I hope that option is still out there with AI and everything. We never know. But yeah, I guess like she's always like seen me as somebody who, I guess, is a bit of a creative lunatic, and she knows that I can't work a regular job, because I just am going to, it's not good for my mental health. It's not good for my soul. Like I need the freedom. I need the creativity. And she's just someone who's always like, she's always very honest. If I make something that's shit, she's the first person to tell me like, dude, come on, you can do so much better than this. And like, yeah, she's my ride or die, bro. That's just how it is. Like, I'm prepared to do just about anything for her, and the same is reciprocated. There's the TLDR is there's believers and there's non-believers, and you just gotta back yourself, I don't think people telling us not to do it would have made a difference. We would have just done it anyway, because if you do what other people tell you, you're going to end up with the same result as everyone else, right?
The game art and the music were now ready. The engine was now working. Playtesters were trialing out all the new content. However, there was still one thing left for Dystopian to do: the marketing. Now, that's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're living on a noodle diet trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, so the Steam page is critical because it kind of tells what your game is. The Steam player base is very smart. They understand games. They're very familiar. They're not like, what's a game? What is this? They know chapter and verse every single like genre and the particulars of genres and that sort of thing. Very smart audience. And I think what the Gnome Steam page does very well is you'll notice there's this GIF. And you see in a second, this is like right at the top of what they call about this game, and you can see in a second what the game's about. It's like you can see it's like tower defense, and you've got all this attacking animation and explosions, and it's just clear. And the other thing that I think the game does very well is the game it's charming, but it's very like, it looks hardcore. Like it's got these very crunchy pixels, and it looks hardcore. Like if you just look at the screenshots, they're very dense. They're very like, I don't know what to look at. There's so much going on, and that sounds bad, but like I said, the Steam player base is hardcore. When you look at this game, it looks hardcore. So the thing that I love about the Gnome Steam page is it sets expectations right up front. It's like, this is not some easy onboarding game. This is a hardcore game, and then that GIF just seals the deal and says, yeah, it's like a tower defense. You're blowing stuff up. You line up your gnomes. You're just killing these baddies. There it is. Take it or leave it. That is brilliant. That is exactly what you should do with your Steam page. All I can tell you is the capsule absolutely rocks. Like, it is so cool. It almost looks like this capsule could be like in a heavy metal band or something. It looks like a shirt that you would find at like a heavy metal concert or something. That aside, the reason, okay, so here's the larger reason why we need capsules, especially for a game like Tommy's, is, and I'll be honest, like I said, the graphics are crunchy, they're deep, they're hardcore, but sometimes, especially with pixel art, shoppers, see that and they're like, oh, it's probably some low effort game. They didn't have the budget to hire an artist, so they do some low res pixel art. It's probably a low effort game. This is the assumptions they're making. It's probably a low effort game and they don't know what they're doing. This game's probably garbage. But when you get a capsule that looks very professionally illustrated, which this does, this looks really good. I really like the art of the capsule. It just gives a bit of assurance to players like, oh, I'm in good hands. This is an artistic choice. Those pixelated graphics, these crunchy pixels, it's an artistic choice because these devs know what they're doing. Look what their capsule art does. This looks professional. This is good. And so my theory is the capsule, which is the thumbnail, just reassures people that, okay, it's supposed to look like this. I know what I'm doing. It's not because I'm not good at art. But for the record, I love his pixel art. I think the pixel art is great. It's just some people have a stigma with pixel art that says, this isn't so high quality. The other thing that this capsule does, which helps, is when content creators like YouTubers, mostly, they have to make a great capsule or a thumbnail. On YouTube parlance, it's the thumbnail. And pixel art is very hard to do well on YouTube because YouTube, the algorithm really depends on the click-through rate. So if your capsule or your thumbnail looks awesome and people click it to watch the video, that bumps them up the YouTube algorithm. So if you can provide good art, which Tommy did, to content creators, they can make a thumbnail easily. So what I would suggest is people at home, or maybe we could show some screenshots, just search the Gnomes game on YouTube and see the capsules that those content creators made. You can see they use the capsule art, Tommy's awesome, like, cool art, in their thumbnail for YouTube. And what that does is that just makes the click-through rate go better, because if a YouTuber has to then like commission art or something, they're just going to pass on your game. And so I call it the symbiotic relationship, where we give cool art and then content creators use that cool art to get a free, awesome looking thumbnail. And then in return, they give that visibility back towards the game. So it is a real good positive feedback loop, kind of like fungus on trees, the nitrogen fixation that fungus does. It's a very similar relationship. I don't know who is fungus and who is the tree. That's for you to decide.
With the release date quickly approaching, Tommy and Pat were feeling really confident. Playtesters were returning really positive feedback, but had enough testing been done? This is something that Tommy and Pat said that they would try to improve for future projects. So was Gnomes ready? Would it work on launch? Tommy decided to throw caution to the wind and release the game at the last possible moment.
What did I seem like? I was erratic, wasn't I?
Well, we weren't sure, because with no sense of time, like initially, like, oh, is it even gonna like sell? Like, it took like a few hours before that like NA peak time hit, and then like the big spike came and stuff like that. So, but we got pretty excited once it like started rolling and everything. So yeah, that was mad.
The moment that we kind of just went, oh, was when we got into new and trending on Steam.
Oh, we had a mad time in new and trending. We were in there for like a week, dude. Like,
yeah,
like 5 days or something.
Yeah. We made
for fucking ages.
4D chess decision, which was we were the last game to release on Friday night. So for us, it was like 4 a.m. and Patrick was like, why are we releasing at 4 a.m? I was like, just fucking trust me, bro. Anyway, we managed to get at the top of new and trending for like Patrick said, 4 or 5 days.
Ages.
And that's most of our sales came from that.
Yeah. That was just all Steam algo. Thank you, Gaben.
We also managed to get some really good bundles too. So some of the games that we bundled with, like Tiny Rogues was one, which is a banger of a dungeon crawling roguelike, and then the North Apologue. We bundled with those games because they had like similar aesthetics, and I think that gave us like a lot of social proof. We also had a friend who launched a game called Nomad Idol, literally at the exact same time as us, only a few, like maybe half an hour earlier. So we got the top spot, and he was just below us.
Worked pretty well.
Yeah, but like most of our bundle sales came from that like couple of days while we were there together. But yeah, getting into new and trending on Steam was like the moment where we went,
Yeah.
we knew like we could just chill, and like we're at least like gonna be able to survive for another 6 months, you know?
Yeah, enough to make another game or something.
Yeah, so I try very hard to understand how Steam works and how to get into the important capsules that matter. We got to spend a little bit of time in Popular Upcoming, but not as long as we would have liked. There was actually a lot of games coming out, but we felt like we were pretty solid and that we were going to be the best chance of sitting in the top spot.
There's a couple of reasons why we chase wish lists, and sometimes people think they're overrated or underrated. I think they're just appropriately rated. So here's what a wish list does is we indies are so small. In order to get that critical, like heat, like that critical spark, we have to kind of pool all our wish lists or all that visibility over time. And all a wish list does, it's kind of like a battery. It just stores all this potential energy in one spot that we can release at the moment that we need it, which is typically launch. If we didn't have that, we'd be relying on like gathering all these people to show up and talk about our game on the same day. It's just not going to happen. And we indies can't do it. Like AAA can do it because they could like sponsor an ad and they can have influencers do it on this day and they can control the shots. But we indies can't do that. And so basically a wish list does just that, like I say, it's that battery to store it. So you might get 1,000 wish lists here, you might get 1,000 wish lists there, but you're banking these wish lists. And that's what it's doing. And you're just storing them for when you need them. Like I said, typically at launch. And here's the thing though, is I think the bad rap that they get is we're getting pretty good, like about writing how do you get wish lists. Everybody kind of knows the game plan now, okay? But the problem is, so everybody's kind of good at getting them. The problem is the game might not be good, and so a lot of people, especially on Reddit, they may get like the minimum that we talk about, like 10,000 wish lists, sometimes even 100,000, and their game does not sell well. And they're like, see, wish lists are over. It's the game's over. Wish lists are inflated. It's not necessary. But what's happening there is it's just that wish lists are an unknown. We don't know what they're going to convert at. Sometimes they convert at like 1 to 5%, somewhere in that range. And sometimes they convert at like 20%, which is awesome. 20 to 30% I've seen. And there's a whole range in between. No game. I always call it like Schrodinger's cat. Not until you launch a game do you peek in there and find out what your conversion rate is. And so it can be frustrating. Tommy's converted very well. The Gnome wish lists did very well. The game's fun. It hit the audience right. The game loop is fun. It's deep. So those wish lists that he gathered and the team from Gnomes gathered converted, which is awesome. There are other games that maybe the game looked amazing and people saw some cool looking screenshots, and so they built up in their mind, it's going to be this awesome game and it's going to be so deep and everything's there. And so they built up a lot of wish lists like that way. And then when the game released, people were like, oh, the controls are bad and this game's like 1 hour long. It's not that deep and it's janky and it's not fun at all. And so it doesn't matter if they built up those wish lists, they convert poorly because everybody's like, skip it. And so they convert poorly. And so depending on where you are, what kind of game you're making, you might say like, you look at the case, that sad case where the game underperformed and you're like, see, wish lists don't matter anymore. Or you're like Tommy and Gnomes and it converted awesome. And he did good. He got a certain number. I think he got 30,000 at launch thereabouts, which is great. That's a good number, but it's not like 100,000 super 150,000 wish lists, but they still converted well. And so that's what I recommend is for devs to gather somewhere, try for at least 7,000 because that starts the algorithm. The Steam algorithm starts to they start to let you in to the algorithm a little bit by 7,000. And that's just to weed out the hobbyists, the scammers and stuff like that. But then the real visibility starts coming when you get your battery is bigger, like I say. And that typically even publishers will kind of go for the 20 to 30,000 wish list. And I believe that's what Tommy got when he launched Gnomes, and it converted. And so if you get that 30,000, it converts, Steam will start showing you more and more. And that's when you really start racking up the numbers and you really, really do well. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened with Gnomes.
We were a little bit disappointed at the press coverage. Like there was pretty little press coverage, which, you know, we don't really need press as much as we need creators. But yeah, I've sort of thought like, especially the Aussie press would have probably been a little bit more pumped about us. But that was one thing that was like a little bit worrying, is like when we first dropped, it was mostly just like the Discord just exploded, and you know, Steam was busy, but we didn't really have the like official support from the big dogs, you know. So hopefully next time they'll get around it, I hope.
What I find, just to clarify that, and what I typically see is the press don't typically cover games until it's popular. And so I see the press coverage as a lagging indicator. So if you're trying to do some research of how games became popular, be very careful of the date the press, if you're like, oh man, they got a big article, look at the date the article came out and when the game launched. And typically I find the press really don't cover you until you've already done well. One thing that I think that is really interesting about Gnomes is that it represents the kind of new strategy that games use to get visibility. It used to be, hey, you would slowly reveal details of your game and get the press to cover you, and you'd be on social media and Reddit. And largely, either it was originally overrated and it's never worked, or the algorithm has changed. But really the way you get visibility now, and Gnomes is a perfect example, is you make a super fun, replayable game, maybe with some procedural generation to it, and you make a demo, and you release that demo, and you get content creators like YouTubers and Twitch streamers to play the game, and that's what brings in the visibility over and over again. And we can look at what they did with Gnomes. You don't really get that visibility until you launch a demo, because there's stuff for people to play, and it can go word of mouth. It can go viral with like YouTubers playing it.
Despite the lack of press around the launch of their game, Gnomes scored an overwhelmingly positive review on Steam. However, their success couldn't have prepared them for the wave of passionate fans that they were about to meet, forming a strong community that they later came known as Gnomies.
Something I sometimes say is I feel less like a game developer and more like a cult leader with the community. We call them the Gnomies. And yeah, just the response that we've had from the people that really love the game has been the thing that's kind of kept us grounded and motivated. You know, we never really had expectations of the cult-like community that we grew. That was the one thing we didn't really expect. Like we knew we'd probably make a bit of money and we'd survive, but yeah, the response from the people that really love the game and like how deeply they love the game is probably the thing that really wasn't on the cards for me.
Yeah, the first time I played it, I was like, damn, I didn't realize he'd gone this far on like a prototype, because before that it was like lots of small, like fun little toy applications and some prototypes, but you know, it was still programmer art. And yeah, so seeing Gnomes for the first time, I felt like, wow, this is a game. Like, I was blown away, and it didn't take them that long to get there as well. It's like they must have just like landed on Gnomes. I think they had a pretty serious prototype before Gnomes, and they, as I remember, they chucked it to the side because it was just looking to be too big a scope, and they thought, let's just scale this down to something even smaller. And they landed on Gnomes, like tile-based, pixel art, just like, you know, keep everything sort of simple and see what they can get done. And it worked. Like they spat something out, like I don't know, like in like 6 months they got like basically a whole game together, it looked like. That first prototype that I played. And it was actually really fun. Like, I wasn't just playing it because like, oh, you know, Pat's my good friend, he's made a game, he wants some like feedback on it. All right, I'll play it. But you know, it was a bit of that at first. Like, you know, I don't really feel like playing a 2D game or something. But you know, after I played it, I had that thing in my head of, ooh, I got to go back and play some more Gnomes now. Like it was actually fun, like addicting, I guess. It had that pull, and I wanted to play more. And I was like, okay, yeah, they've found something.
So I found it through Steam. I saw Gnomes on the big recommended kind of page. I think it was through the new and trending section. Though actually that's not why I bought it. I actually found it again through the demos. I was looking through the different demo pages to find something that I wanted to play. And when I downloaded the demo, the first thing that I noticed, I was poking through the settings and I saw all this cool accessibility stuff that was really helpful for me. Because they have things like reduced screen shake and that you can turn off different, things that was just super, super helpful for me.
Yeah, so Gnomes came across my radar through my brother-in-law. He's a game dev as well in his own game, Macabre. But my brother-in-law, Jay, knew Tommy. I guess they'd probably... Oh, I think they went to school together, actually. That's how they knew each other. And he just sent me a message on Discord one day. He was like, hey, have you seen this game? It's popping off on Steam. Like, thousands of people are playing it. You should check it out. Just send Tommy a message. And so, yeah, found him on Discord, sent him a message. He sent me a Steam key within like half an hour, which was awesome. It's always very nice when devs are so open to that. And like, it makes giving them coverage so much easier than having to go through like a bloody PR company or like really try sell yourself in order to justify getting a code. Like, again, that was a really good first impression of how down to earth he was.
The first time I ever saw Gnomes is on YouTube, on a channel called Splattercut Gaming. It does like reviews of all those small games. And maybe I even saw it on Steam before, but that video really did me want to check out the game. I instantly got captivated by like the art style. It reminded me of Loop Hero, if you know that game. It has a very like charming appeal in terms of pixel art. So I am a busy man. I work freaking 9 to 6. And for me to check out a game like that, it's actually insane. But, alas, Gnomes is something I wanted to check out, so I went on Steam, I checked out the demo. I really liked it, so I decided to tell the developers that they did a great job. I really liked it.
A friend of mine recommended it to me. It was either 2 or 3 days after the game released, and he basically said, yo, you would really like this game. You should get it. And I watched him play it for like 5 minutes, and immediately I bought it. But looking at Gnomes, it felt good, because I really like pixelated games, like 8-bit, 16-bit. It really draws me in. And the smoothness of the animations they have outside of Endgame is just amazing. But even getting to Endgame, it feels like a reward when your PC starts to slow down. You're like, yes, I've made it. It can't even go farther than this.
I've met a few of them, like just in the Discord and like on voice chat and stuff like that. Like, super awesome, and like they're really keen to get involved. Like, they're translating it to other languages, doing a great job. They
did the wiki
doing
too.
the wiki. Yeah, they did a sick job on the wiki. Like, they update it every time.
We didn't even ask them; they just do it. Like, they just they're like, I think it's that they want to share it, which is the cool thing. Like, they're trying to make it more shareable for us.
I actually, when I first started that, I was looking to make a spreadsheet. And then when I dug far enough, I found other people had actually worked on some of the stuff that I wanted to spreadsheet out, but it was kind of really hard to find. And I found it directly through the Gnomes title page because it's on there in the game itself. And I really thought that it would be helpful to help other people be able to use, increase that usability and organize it a little better. So a lot of what I did on the wiki was actually linking stuff together and trying to make it usable. So things like the entities, the relics, and the gnomes, they were all kind of separate pages, and I wanted to make sure that those were the easiest things to find because they're some of the most useful stuff to find. They already existed by the time I started, the gnomes overview page and the relics and the entities, but they didn't have anything linking them, and they also didn't have certain other, I would say, like mesh pages to help them work together. So I did a lot of organization to make sure that people could find the things they were looking for, and I tried to work on making things accurate and filling any blanks that I found. And then I also made a lot of the pages as well. I made pages for the guilds, for building mazes, for the cheats guide, and for the individual gnomes, so the archer gnomes and knife gnomes and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of what I did on the wiki.
Okay, so when I joined Discord and tell the devs that they did a great job, I noticed that they gave away the playtest key on Steam. And I decided, more content for free? Like, sign me up. So I joined the playtest, started testing it, and it was more advanced version of the demo with constant updates. They updated it quite frequently. And it was an experience to play the playtest with all the other playtesters, because everybody tried to find this perfect gnome formation. Like the most optimal way of reaching the end game and like setting a record. It is still going on today, like this quest, and there are more tools to get better results. Because later they decided, okay, we want to make the game accessible for as many people as possible. So they started working on translations. And it was hard for them because the font of the game was hard-coded into a PNG. And they tried to fix that. So instead of hard-coding the whole letters into, like the whole alphabet into a PNG, they just coded like a separate character into PNG, and that way you could do as many characters as you wanted as long as they fitted on the screen. So they hired some translators, they told me, for a bunch of languages, but they also asked like the community, like, if you know this language, you can help us if you want. So I personally know Russian and Romanian, so I said, like, if you want me to do that, I can oblige. And so I did Romanian. It took me a while. I did it.
I think right now it still is kind of a small community because there are some people that come and go. Others, they'll stick around, but I think more of that is just because of how new the game is, and the traction of the game to me is, it's a slow build. It's not something like Fortnite where it just fucking blows up and then you have a $2 billion budget. But the people that really love it continue to love it, and they stick around to see what's coming next. Because there have been a few small updates, but there hasn't been like big content updates yet. But I know as those come, and say when Steam has like certain sales, like summer sales, or I don't know, TD sales, or like right now they have an automation sale. Once Gnome starts getting really popular and starts showing up on the front pages, there'd be a lot more people that come in. And the community is definitely going to be able to help them and guide them through how to see the game and how not to get stumped on one specific map or the other. And I mean, hey, it's like $10, so I feel like when most people look at it, if they're interested, they're gonna say, hey, this is half of my lunch money, it's not that big a deal, I'll check it out and see what's up. The devs and the community is so involved in each other that it really feels like a community. It's not just a game you play and then, oh, I go online, I meet a couple other people, like Monster Hunter. Like, the game's fun, but it's not like you're ever gonna get in a moment where, oh, I'm talking with one of the guys that actually programs the updates for the game and he's playing right next to me. Like, what is going on? This game, I mean, shit. I've talked to I haven't talked to Tommy too much. But I talked to
Pat.
fuck yeah, Pat, quite a bit. I mean, he even gave me mod, and I ended up making up a little like subcategory on the Discord just to archive all of the runs.
Fans, here's a thing that I find is the fans on Steam actually understand genre in games better than developers. And I've seen interviews with players, and they're like, "Oh, the reason this game failed is da da da. It grabbed this element from this game, and it grabbed this element for this game, but they mixed it wrong, and they left out these key features which are crucial for this type of game." And then I go to the developers like, "Did you know all this?" They're like, "I had no idea. I didn't even know about half the games that person was asking about or talking about." And it's like, over and over, I find fans know more about games than a lot of developers, ironically.
I think the special part of it is it doesn't feel like a tower defense game. Like, at its core, obviously it is, but they have so many aspects of gameplay styles that it almost just feels like you're playing like a... Obviously it has levels, like incremental, days, but it's almost like it's not a tower defense, it's a leveling sim, basically. And every level that you get higher, you either increase the amount of gnomes you have, increase the amount of like crops, all of your fields, or you just crumble.
Gnomes is a game with a distinct charm about it, with a community of fans that strongly support it and try to increase its reach, all created by two developers in a shed who still work to continue to push out new content and fix bugs. So what does the future look like for the team at Dystopian and Gnomes, and the community that has grown around their game?
If they had a way, or a relic, or some item that had a multiplicative effect on damage, I do think that would be cool to see in the game, but I get how hard that could be to balance. And it might add to the PC strain of, you're going 2 frames a second at day 39. But that, and probably, I guess, more maps would be cool, but that would also make portals more of a nightmare. Portals 2 would be cool. Take the tiles and split each tile by 4.
As far as Gnomes goes, it sounds like they've got a little bit of free content on the way in the future, which is really nice. I think that's quite a generous thing. Continue to support a game post-launch, like keep people coming back to it, which is really cool, especially for people who supported the game early. I mean, you look at things like Hollow Knight or Cult of the Lamb, very big, popular Australian games, and they were popular early, but the devs continued to add more and more, and it just got more eyes on the game. So I see that being a really great potential for Gnomes.
I've been talking with Tommy, actually, because he's been keen to start working on something else as well. And I'm like, dude, do some art for my game. So I'm trying to steal a bit of Tommy's attention as well. But yeah, I'm excited for whatever they come up with next. I've seen a few prototypes. We're even thinking about the 3 of us working on something. Who knows what's going to happen there? I feel like they could do another one of those. They could do another Gnomes. With those, like, pixel art, keep it simple. But yeah, maybe, because I feel like some people they make a game and they have its success, and then the next game they're just like, oh, we got to do something way bigger, and sometimes the second game isn't all that great because they forgot what made the first game good. Like, they think like, oh, we can go bigger now, but yeah, maybe if their next game is just as small as Gnomes, not that it's that small, but like, a tight-knit, like, focused idea, I think they'll probably have similar success again.
I would really love to see Dystopian make another game. It's one of those things where I'm obviously excited about the future of Gnomes, but I think a lot of indie developers specifically, they get really invested in one game and then they kind of disappear, and I'm always sad to see it because I would love to see them keep going.
I feel developers should do whatever they want, because like the Gnomes has a soul, you know, not every game has a soul, but the Gnomes has it. And I think it is because developers did what they wanted to do, what they felt was right. And it's not some kind of like $1 million pursuit. So if they feel like making something new, I'm gonna try it. No.
One thing we do really want to do is like get the modding side of
Yeah,
things out.
yeah. It's made me wish that I'd done modding, so that they'd give them like even more chance just to like run wild.
We're cooking some new maps, which is pretty exciting. That's the thing I'm probably the most pumped to be doing. Like actually making the content for the game. That's the bit that brings us joy. Like this stuff that we were just talking about with
takes like no time as well compared to all the other shit.
It's like the effort to output ratio is just it's awesome. Like we can cook up. Yesterday we cooked up prototypes for about 3 maps. Like they're still ugly and they're not balanced and they haven't.
Yeah, I made like 2 maps yesterday basically.
Yeah,
and he made like cool art and shit for it.
Yeah, so that's the bit that we live for. That's the reason we do this. So it's kind of I saw a meme the other day. It's like every creative hobby is like 90% sanding. It's like carpentry is 90% sanding. So that we live for that 10%, which is actually creating the stuff. The other 90% is like marketing and business.
Yeah, 90% is like trying to coordinate with like other companies and like blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's the bit that sucks. But yeah, we live for that 10% of the fun, which is making stuff. I mean, the ideal world is that like everyone would just have the same system and we wouldn't have to worry about any of this bullshit, and Steam would do all the marketing for us and we could just make cool games. Hopefully one day we have a reputation where we don't need to worry about posting on Reddit and creating YouTube shorts and that kind of nonsense, and we can just make games and get excited about it, you know? Like that's the reason we do it. Like that's what I go to sleep thinking about, is like, how am I going to skin this new map? Or like, what's a cool type of goblin that would fit this environment? It's like, what's this mechanic Patrick come up with? What's the idea for this relic? That's the thing that like just sparks my juices and gets me firing, you know? That's the thing I get pumped about. Maybe we won't talk about specifics, but we have a lot of prototypes. Like we were talking about that other game we were cooking on for a long time, and there's a lot of tech that we had from that game, a lot of ideas like that were our original inspiration. We realized was probably a bit too ambitious. We're also a little bit more battle hardened now, and we know what not to fuck around with and like what actually is going to matter, and also what the players actually care about too is probably more important. But yeah, 100%. Like we want to make some more content for Gnomes so that the people that have supported us have something to keep playing, and we want to bring back the players that we already have. But at the same time, like we're not going to spend too much time. We need to move on. Like we are running a business and we got to stay alive, so we have to move on and make our next bet essentially. What idea we go with, I don't think we've quite settled on yet, but we've got a couple of things that I think we're pretty confident on. I think we understand now what the structure of the game needs to look like, what the game is. We're not quite sure yet, if that makes sense.
Since flying to Brisbane and meeting Tommy and Pat in their shed, the team at Dystopian has had some big changes. They very recently released their 1.3 patch, bringing a whole lot of new content. So how is this new content going to shape the future of Gnomes? Is Gnomes going to be left in the dark, or will it be continued to be worked on into the future?
So we got 4 new maps, we got a bunch of new relics. It like really multiplies the game space, which is like what I love the most. Like, yeah, it was like, I think it went pretty well, like for the gameplay and like the sort of like longevity. You can like replay 8 new guilds, new achievements, some really hard achievements. The best part was that for me was that it added a lot of really challenging content for the hardcore players, because once you get over the learning curve or learning cliff, it's actually not really that hard. So I was really pleased to add some really challenging content. Yeah. and it was a lot of work, but when the community received it and getting to see their reception and see all the activity pick back up in the Discord, it like really felt worth it. When we released that update, we had a biggest day of sales than on our launch day. So I was, we were thrilled. I still sort of think that the game could pop off more like at any time. Like it's just ready to blow. Well, there's room for 4 new maps in there, as our players would know. And so, 1.4 is going to come eventually. We'll add some more, hopefully make it even better. Stay tuned. There might be some other updates, a few things in the works. So.